everyone, this is Kaurs Korner, and today we're with June Liu, and she's running for South Surrey White Rock for the NDP. So June, you were nominated. This is your first time running. How has it been?
It has been fun, exciting. I love getting on the doorstep, on the phones, talking to people, having these really meaningful conversations, and I love hearing what people's thoughts are.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you're really passionate, and I know you've worked for the NDP prior to being nominated. This was a bit of a surprise election. Are you feeling prepared, or are you wishing you had maybe more time?
I feel like we're all kind of a little bit rushed. We're all caught off guard, so it definitely would have been preferable to have it when it was due. But in terms of preparedness, I think we're feeling all right. We have all 338 candidates nominated across Canada. We have a really great team. 78%, I believe, are equity-seeking candidates, so that means they're either they're from the LGBTQ2S community, they're either or women or people of color or Indigenous, and so I'm really proud of that accomplishment.
That's amazing. Yeah. So June, you mentioned that your party is very diverse. So what is the NDP's take on the Indigenous issues that are taking place, especially right now, in light of everything that's been happening?
Yeah, so kind of first and foremost, we want to, we have a really good plan of reconciliation. We want to take UNDRIP into, just to its full potential and really implement it to every aspect. So we want to do that in a way that is bringing Indigenous leaders, Indigenous people into the conversation and giving them, the ability to speak up for what they need. Of course, as much as we want to plan and we want to kind of let them know and do these things that we think are best, it might not be what's best for them. And so what we're doing is we have this equal partnership where we can explain like what resources we can provide, what support, what we have the ability to do, and then let them communicate that and then take what they need into consideration and let them kind of speak for themselves. And some of the issues that we've heard that we're really focusing on first and foremost is health and clean water. So there's still tons of communities across Canada, especially in reserves, that do not have clean water. They've been under a boil water advisory for decades, and that's not okay. We have clean water. It's something that's seen as so natural and normal for us, and that's not the case. So that is going to be a huge issue. We want to bridge the education gap. Indigenous students have a lower graduation rate, not by any fault of their own, but just because they're so systematically disenfranchised. We want to bridge that gap. We want to provide the resources necessary. We want to provide the stipends necessary and the grants necessary for them to go to post-secondary education. We want to, unearth the atrocities that Canada's colonial history has. We want to put that into our school curriculums across Canada so we can acknowledge and begin to heal and work towards a more fair and equitable future. We also want to address racism in healthcare, in policing. These are all super important to us, and they're absolutely a priority, and that's just the beginning. Things like housing are also part of our plan, and ensuring that they have the right to speak up about their own land that we've taken without compensation or permission or consent. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's time that we do what's right and rectify our wrongs.
Thank you so much. It just warms my heart to hear all of that, because that's a very big topic that's been coming to the news lately, and I think, and especially as teachers ourselves, that we want the best, right? And we want to recognize that the Indigenous communities matter, right? And I know the Indigenous community really, really values our environment, and they're so heavy on that topic, and there's protests going on consistently. There's obviously lots going on with RCMP arresting them, and they're trying to do a good thing. And the UN just recently came up with the report that we need to do something right now. It's getting insane. It's getting out of hand.
Absolutely.
So what will the NDP do in regards to that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, as with everything, we need to take what the Indigenous leaders are saying into consideration and having them be a part of our team to build that plan. The only way forward is a way that is sustainable. And they've been stewards of the land for millennia, and so they know exactly what this land needs, and so having their input, having their knowledge and their wisdom brought to the table is so important. Beyond that, we are also taking obviously science into consideration, and not saying that what they're saying isn't scientific, but we have more, we have the ability to do more now. We can explore different options. And so we are moving forward towards a Green New Deal, and that is going to include things like getting to a net zero carbon emission, and whether that's by way of sustainable partnerships with businesses, saying like, hey, we will help you develop these green technologies if you promise to implement them, or if you agree to implement them, or by way of taxation and penalties for those who are, just polluting with no regard for the earth, to make sure that there are fair penalties across the board, because so often of the time, we are the ones kind of bearing the brunt of the environment going haywire. We're the ones bearing the brunt of these environmental policies. So for example, when you're buying a can of pop, you're paying 5 cents on that pop can. You are paying taxes for sustainability's sake, which is great. However, large businesses like Nestle that are just draining our lakes, they pay next to nothing for that, for those environmental impacts. And so we want to make sure that there's no more loopholes. We're closing that gap. We want to make sure that we're investing in these green energy and sustainable energy methods. So that means taking money out of the gas and oil industry and divesting that, and in reinvesting into people, into the science and technology we need to develop greener energy. And it's not saying that we're just going to make all these oil and gas workers go out of business and making them suffer. No, we want to reinvest in them. We also have a plan in place to re-educate them and send them back to school, fully funded, so they can learn how to develop these green technologies and work in these industries. And so we're making sure that nobody is left behind when we transition away from oil and gas, and that's definitely what needs to happen now. We're also building. We're committed to building more infrastructure, so we are able to eat locally, be local, and reduce the amount of energy we even need to consume.
So it's really important that you said that. We were talking to Annie Ohana, who was running for the last election, and she had mentioned when you're speaking about renewable energy and maybe switching to solar or something that's a bit more sustainable, that people do get scared, especially in Alberta. It's like, oh, you're taking away our livelihood. Like, they depend on oil, they depend on the tar sands, but really what you're saying is that there will be training provided to people working in that industry, and there can be a shift to something that's clean and actually going to help us sustain our environment, our world.
Absolutely. Workers are always at the heart of what we do. So much of the NDP policies and our values come so much from the labor movement, so there's no way we are going to leave them behind. And so we've definitely have consulted with them. We've consulted with the experts in the industry, and it is a lot of the skills that they have from working in the tar sands and from working in the oil fields, like those skills are definitely transferable to sustainable energy, to a green kind of system. And so we want to rehire them. We want to invest in people. We want to invest in these industries and these technologies and rehire them back to make sure that they still have those good jobs that they have, and they're just working towards something that's better for all of us.
I think everyone's worried that they need to be able to pay for their house, right? So I think jobs are so important, which also leads me to housing. It needs to be more affordable. It's gone through the roof. Like, as a teacher, I thought, hey, I'd go through doing everything right and get the job and I'll get a house. Can't afford a house on my own at all. Like, even 2 people, it's difficult.
Absolutely.
Working class citizens are really struggling.
I hear ya. As a millennial, I feel that. And like, just first and foremost, teachers are so underpaid and so overworked. That is just me as a person. Oh my gosh, teachers deserve so much more.
Thank you for that.
And education is so important. It forms who you are, and so it's so unfair that you are the one raising the next generation. Helping them have the ability to become sustainable, like functioning adults, and yet you're here struggling. That's not fair. And we definitely hear you. Housing is so important. As a millennial, I also feel the struggle of trying to afford a home in my own neighborhood. And, you know, in South Surrey, White Rock, that's getting increasingly difficult, not just for us millennials, but also for seniors, I've heard. And this was something that caught me off guard, was that, you know, seniors a lot of times are on a fixed income, or they're retired, they don't have a steady income anymore, and they're getting priced out of their own communities that they have raised a family, they spent decades in. And that's so unfair. That should not happen. You know, they saw this community through, they built it up from the ground, and they shouldn't have to leave now that everything is in place. It's just like, oh, we're gonna boot you? No, of course not. So we definitely have a very comprehensive housing strategy, and that's going to include, first and foremost, foreign buyers tax, and we're going to cut speculation. So foreign buyers tax, we're going to up the ante and make it more stringent, and we're going to stop, you know, foreign entities, whether that be, you know, these big investors, whether this be corporations. They have to stop using our housing market as the stock market. This is not something for you to play with. These are people's lives. These are people's homes. Everybody deserves a place to call home, and that shouldn't be a radical notion. And so definitely we're going to stop that foreign kind of meddling in our housing market. We are going to invest in building more affordable homes, whether that be for sale or for rent. We're going to do that across Canada, and especially in Indigenous communities. And also, you know, for the general market, because, you know, some people want to own, some people want to buy. That's a choice for you to make, but you have to be able to have that choice at all. We're also going to have more stringent policies around speculation. And we're going to reinvest funds back into the CRA so that they can discover who is, you know, playing with the housing market, who's speculating, because we don't want you to feel like, oh, I can't renovate my home once I have one, and I'm going to get slapped with speculation tax. Absolutely not. We want you to live in a nice home. We want you to be able to, you know, fix your stove when it breaks and upgrade, you know, get a new fridge. That's totally fine. That's not the problem here. The problem is when people, you know, buy up these homes, especially like from foreclosures, when people losing their home, and, you know, changing like 3 things on there, and then, you know, just reselling it for an extra $500,000. That's ridiculous. That's not okay. And so that's definitely kind of where we want to start. Of course, there's so much more to be done. It's gonna take a lot of partnerships with provincial governments as well. Specifically in BC, we're looking at how we could, you know, have a partnership and work with BC Housing to either by policy or by investment of funds to you know, bring back co-op housing, bring back these neighborhoods that are for working class families, you know, so that people can raise their kids again and feel comfortable to you know, call this place home and not feel like they're being kicked out.
Yeah, I was actually driving in North Van a few weeks ago, and I saw this developer, and they were doing a rent-to-own project, and I was like, wow, that sounds so amazing. Like, that actually gave me a little bit of hope that if something like this was implemented, like, it's a program, just like how you're talking, maybe that could be something that gives people the opportunity to own a home.
Absolutely. We want to work with developers.
We need that hope.
And we want to work with developers. We want to incentivize, you know, building sustainable, affordable housing. Because it's not like there's not money to be made for developers. This is always going to be an industry in which, you know, the labor that they put in, the effort that they put in, that should be, you know, they should be compensated for that. But we want to make sure that they're building homes for people instead of for corporations, for the game. You know, this isn't a game. This is our lives.
100%. So now if we just take a shift and talk about kind of what's been happening over the past year and a half, which is the COVID pandemic. So what I think the biggest question that we've been hearing from especially a lot of DMs that came in through Instagram on our page were related to the vaccine and kind of the new policies that have now come out. So what is the NDP's take on privilege and the right to choose? Do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm just going to say I'm not an expert in medicine. I am in no way, shape, or form claiming to be. However, we want to listen to people who are experts. So we're listening to the doctors, you know, to these experts, to Dr. Tam, to Dr. Bonnie Henry, and what they're recommending is that anyone who can get vaccinated absolutely should get vaccinated. It is safe, it is proven to work, and there really shouldn't be a reason to not get it unless you have you're immunocompromised, in which case we want you to be safe, and that's why the rest of us as a community should do what's right and protect each other. I shouldn't have to tell you to care about each other. It's really much kind of human nature, and we as Canadians have always cared about each other, and we should continue to do that. When it comes to the right to choose, that definitely, I definitely have heard that rhetoric, and it's not that we're gonna just hold you down and force you into getting a vaccine. That's absolutely not what we want to do. We want to take your health, we want to take your well-being into consideration, but we also want you to understand the science and the fact that it's proven to work, and the dangers of not having a vaccine. When it comes to a lot of the question right now is about the vaccine passport, and so people are kind of there have been some disgusting comparisons with oppression versus having this vaccine passport, and I find that really, really unfair. The vaccine passport is designed to just have an easy, accessible document that we can all have. We can all, be comfortable with each other and be like, hey, are you vaxxed? I'm vaxxed. We can, go to different communities and, explore, play, have fun in different places, and make sure that we are keeping them safe and ourselves safe as well. And it's just a lot easier if we have a program across the board, across Canada, so it's not up to each province to figure out something, and maybe it's not compatible, confusion there. We could just save that mess, and just have it in one place. And again, if you can't get a vaccine, if you have any health issues that would prevent you from doing so, we get that. And so we're not saying like you can't ever exit your house again. We're saying that let's hold on. We want to make sure you're safe, that because you don't have a vaccine, we're going to we're not going to allow you entry into spaces that could be risky for your own health. So for example, you can't go to if a bar is packed and you're not vaccinated, we don't know what's going to be in that bar. We want to make sure that you're safe. In the same sense, if you're going to a large indoor concert, we want to make sure you're safe, and that's why we have these stringent policies and rules, because we want to make sure everybody is safe, and that's the core of what we're trying to do. And it really is coming from a place of wanting to make sure that nobody is accidentally hurting anyone else. And I really like the comparison of you can't smoke until you can't buy cigarettes until you're of a certain age, you can't buy alcohol until you're of a certain age. And it's done partially, we're still giving you a choice to smoke or to drink if you'd like. However, we want to protect, those who are vulnerable. We want to protect children who may be especially affected by these things. And we want to put policies in place where you have a choice, but there's some strings attached, and that is coming from a place of caring, and it's not coming from a place of, oh no, the boogeyman is here.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Thank you, June. That was a big one, so I'm glad you answered that very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, just kind of switching, we're like voting day's coming up, and when we are looking at our local candidates and we're trying to figure out who we're going to vote for, we're hearing there's a lot of struggle that people are feeling with themselves, because sometimes who you want to vote for locally in your riding may not be the candidate of the party that you want to vote for or have as the federal leader. So we've heard this from a few people, like, oh, I really want Jagmeet, or I really want Trudeau to be in charge, but then locally they really want somebody else. Maybe they want a conservative candidate, or maybe they want a green candidate. So voter reform, like, there has to be a better way to do this.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring that up, and I'm going to kind of tap into the other side of my life a little bit, which I was raised partially in Taiwan. I spent 3 years of elementary school there and like 1 year of middle school, kind of. And that is a place where, you vote for the president separately from you vote for your local representative. Obviously, it's the tiered system's different. It's a tiny island. We don't need a provincial and a federal and a municipal, that whole system. But, we have proportional representation in Taiwan. And we have a separate president. We have specific seats reserved for Indigenous members of the community. And, we've seen it work really well. And obviously, Taiwan is not the only place with proportional representation. You see this you see different forms of this in Ireland and New Zealand, Australia. And, there's different weighted ballots, or there's, you number them. There's like different picks. You know, you have your number 1, your number 2, or you pick your party separately from you picking the leader. There's so many formats of voting and democracy across the world, and they have been shown to work really well. And I think that's a great point that you brought up, because I think collaboration is really important when it comes to things like policies and you know, making decisions for Canadians. And I'm not going to say that we are the only party that has ever come up with a good idea. You know, a lot of the things that we've done has been a collaboration with other, you know, non-New Democrats. And, you know, these policies are great. Like, for example, you know, we have healthcare, and that was definitely, you know, a collaboration. It was a team effort to make sure that we can all, you know, go to the emergency room and not have to cry about the bill. We just have to cry about, you know, your sprained ankle. And so I definitely, electoral reform is something that we want to work on. We did struggle a little bit, you know, provincially when we had the pro-rep campaign. And we definitely have taken that into account and learned from those mistakes of, you know, wording was not the best. Getting the message out there was a bit of a struggle. And so we are in the plans of creating electoral system that makes sense for everybody, but it's going to take a lot of input, and so we don't have a specific format that we want to just be like, this is it, here you go, everybody stop talking. We're not going to do that. You know, we want to take that into consideration, but it's definitely a priority for us. It's on our plan that we want to make sure that Canadians can have their voice heard. And whether, you know, we're all super diverse, we come from very different diverse backgrounds, and obviously our views are going to be diverse. You know, sometimes I might like one policy there, I might like another policy here, and that's okay. And you should be able to voice that and have those concerns heard. So to answer your question, yes, it's in our plan. We want to do this. We're committed to working with Canadians to figure out what works best for Canada.
Voters are wondering, how can we trust the NDP to be transparent and to follow through on the promises that we're hearing during this election?
Absolutely. So like we said earlier, you know, electoral reform, being able to really vote how you want, as opposed to, you know, having to be strategic with it. Oh, I like this person, but I don't like that person, or I like this policy, but I don't like this party. You know, with you know, a more proportional representation type system or a different electoral system, we're able to you know, be held more accountable for our actions as politicians. And so I think that's wonderful. You know, and we've been, and kind of the reason that you should trust is because, well, you've trusted the other two, and how far have we gotten there? Not very, if I might say so myself. You know, we've seen a lot of campaign promises, and so little has been delivered. And so we want to make sure that we're available. And I think the biggest commitment that I have is that I am doing my best in comparison with my competitors in South Surrey White Rock, is that, you know, I'm here, my phone is always on, I'm ready to hear from you. I have a text option where you can just text me your concerns. You know, I'm on Instagram, my email is public. I would love to hear what questions and concerns people have, and I would love to take those concerns. I don't want to be just, you know, hiding away in Ottawa or hiding away in my office. I'm here, and I want you to hold me accountable for the things that I'm saying. And, you know, I used to work for Jagmeet, and I was, you know, there on, you know, he gave us specific direction to be, you know, on the phones, at the door, at the office, taking in these concerns. And it didn't matter what your political affiliations were, who you voted for in the past. If you had a problem and you felt like you wanted a response from the NDP or from Jigme or from, you know, the broader team, we were here to help you make it happen. And so, you know, I personally, even as just like a voter, I have a lot of trust from seeing that firsthand. And I want to take that and you know, kind of amplify it and bring it to my community and make sure that when, you know, my neighbors have concerns, that they're able to find me and they're able to reach me, and I can bring those concerns to Ottawa. I can work with the team and figure out a solution for them.
We are really happy to see that there is young blood, and that's obviously a positive thing for us, as we're also a younger generation, so we like to see that you're out there and you're running. This is huge.
So much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And we wish you best of luck. So everybody, thank you for joining us today, and thanks again, June.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you get out and you vote. Make that informed decision. Do not fall into the trap of the top 2 parties, top 3 parties. Really look at the platforms, who is going to, who's most aligned with your values and your views, and make that decision.